Hello Internet, welcome to my channel, A Minor Error. Hope you're doing well. My name is Rob, and in this video we're going to take a look at the Neural DSP Amp Sim plugin, model of one of those classic, kind of beloved metal amps. This is the Mesa Boogie Mark IIC+. So before we get into this review, no, Neural DSP did not pay for this video, and I paid for the plugin with my own money, so all of my opinions are my own. This video is also part of a series that I'm doing where I'm shooting out the Neural DSP plugin against an actual Mesa Boogie head and cab, and then that head running through the Two Notes Captor X and their whole IR system and all that kind of stuff, kind of seeing which one is, best. So if you like the video, like to see the rest of them, stop by the channel. I'll try to, put the links kind of throughout as well. So with all that out of the way, let's get into it. Okay, so here we are on my project file. We're going to get in the weeds a little bit here with this review. This is from a review I made a few years back on a Jericho baritone guitar. It was a pretty sweet guitar with stainless steel frets, Seymour Duncan pickups, and Hipshot hardware. I got it for so cheap. It was supposed to be $2,200. I got it for like $650, so I just kept it. But if you'd like to see the video, I'll do the whole link thing and all that good stuff. So let's take a look here. A couple things about my project file. Originally, I did it all in Archetype Gojira, and I was running a lot of different effects. So what I decided to do was let those effects run with all the automation that I had, and I just bypassed everything else. So all of the amp tones themselves, the signal path would basically be the same. It's just replacing Gojira with the Mark IIC+. And what I ended up doing is, for the Mark IIC+, I've got a couple different tones here. We've got a lead that's double tracked left and right. Then I've got a rhythm guitar, another kind of quiet lead that is double tracked, this kind of clean-ish tappy thing, and then my lead. The ends stand for Neural because this video, like I said earlier, is a part of a whole bunch of different shootouts here. This is my actual cab, this is the Two Notes version, and then this is the head of the Mesa running into the speaker sim of the Neural DSP, which I found to be a very interesting combo. But we're just here for the Neural DSP stuff right now. So first things first, if you've never used the Neural plugins, they all kind of look the same, honestly, and they all have a similar signal path, which I like a lot. I think it's laid out in a very logical way. First things first is basically our signal path is like what it's doing up here in these icons. So you got your pedals up front, then it goes to the head, the speaker, an external EQ that you could use or not use, and then you've got your delay and reverb at the end, and they're pretty much all laid out like that, which is pretty logical. You can see little arrows here as well, letting you know the signal flow. So your guitar would hit the compressor and then overdrive, two different flavors of overdrive, a chorus in the beginning. So that's cool. Up here, we've got the input, so you could change the trim coming in, a meter that shows that input level. You've got a gate, the ability to transpose, which is kind of a newer thing in new Neural DSP plugins. A switch to change it from mono and stereo, which is awesome. So what I've done in my track is instead of running two separate amps, because then to adjust the volume, you'd need two faders and you could make a group and it just makes everything kind of messy. I took my double track and then just bounced it down as a stereo file, and then all you have to do is tell the plugin, hey, we're stereo, and you're good to go. If you're in mono, you can have this doubler thing. The doublers are kind of lame, if I'm honest. I mean, it's fine for what it is, but it's never real double tracking, right? You need actually two different takes to get the double tracking effect right. So we're obviously not using the doubler at all. You've got your presets that you can save and flow through right here. And then an output trim to control the overall output level. And then at the bottom is the different cabs and different heads. So there's two different heads in there. So there's the 2C+, and then there's a 2C++. And this one is special because you have the ability to flip the head around in the back, and you can see the 2C+ switch over there versus just the single C+, and then you can flip it back. We've also got a few different cabs. So for this one, since I was shooting it out against an actual 2x12, I chose a cab and a mic setup that was basically very close to what I already had. So I'm using the 2x12 with basically a Sennheiser and a Royer mic combo. But if you click through those, that changes the cab. We've got a couple different cabs here. You've got what is it? Is the oversized 04 is what this one is, and then the next one is the traditional. That's right. So they're both 04s, oversized cab versus traditional size cab. Mesa cabs are like really famous for just like way too much low end on stage for a guitar. So that was why I chose what I chose. Let's get into the head, right? Because that's kind of why we're here. Is really the magic, right? It's a Mark series head, which if you don't know anything about Mark series heads, it's the 5-band EQ that makes them special. The EQ controls right here are preamp, basically. So essentially, when you grab these and manipulate them, it's acting as like a separate boost pedal in a way. So if you turn up the treble, you're turning up the treble of your guitar going into the distortion. So it changes the character of the distortion that way, as opposed to your traditional one, which would be after. So that can be very tricky when it comes to dialing in your rhythm tone, because if you want more low end in the rhythm tone, you do not do it here on the actual bass. You have to do it over here on the 5-band EQ, and that's the part that's a little confusing. So if you notice, my bass is turned to 0, and this is just like this octave part playing, and there's no bass here at all. Or no bass rather, going into it, right? Going into the preamp section. And then what I'm doing is the classic Mesa Boogie V, where I'm boosting the 80 hertz or the low level fader. And I think that's what makes dialing Mark series heads so hard. Guitar players were probably not used to thinking, we're used to thinking 3 knobs, right? You got bass, middle, and treble, right? Well, now we have 5 sliders, and they're at specific frequency points, so that makes it a little trickier to dial in, and especially because there's different ways of adjusting everything depending on what we push and pull. You can add brightness in different points in the chain. So there's a ton going on here, not to mention if you flip it around back, you've got a separate presence knob control on the back, and you can change which type of power amp saturation you're getting. Mesa's Simul class, or versus, which is class, I think AB is what it's technically considered, gets more high, clean headroom, just loud as hell, basically, versus just like class A, which is lower wattage, if I'm remembering correctly from my, I had a Simul 290 for like 15 years. So this is why I think some people who are used to Marshalls don't like, or maybe even like a Soldano, or maybe a 5150. Man, there's just so much tweakability here, so you can really get in the weeds having to tweak it. And I think that's why sometimes the Mesa stuff is, people get frustrated by it, which I get it, It's almost, I feel like the best comparison is the Mesa stuff is like the Floyd Rose of amps. It's like, once you know your way around it, if you like it, you're gonna love it for a long time, but if you don't, you're just gonna freaking hate it. So anyway, enough blabbing. Let's get into it. So first, what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna pull up the rhythm guitar. Let's focus mostly on the rhythm guitar and the lead guitar. I think that's gonna be the most interesting for this kind of review here. So that's what the plugin sounds like with no processing. So I've got Gojira running in front of it with the wow on, because that's what I did for my original demo here. And I've turned off all of my processing. That's just what it sounds like. So what we can do is start to explore a little bit here. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn off the lead. So that's the other thing that's interesting about this head is it's a dual cascading drive section. So this is gonna be just with the first drive section going. And I'll kick in the second one. Turn off my overdrive as well. So you can hear the tone is not perfectly clean and clear, right? We're getting a little bit of grit just from the very first drive section. Man, there's so much we can do here. So there's a pull bright that I don't have on, a pull to shift the bass. I've got the deep turned on in the low end. So let's actually turn that off. We'll just kind of go through this one at a time. I'll kick off the EQ actually. So that's basically no processing in on the head. The EQ is off. I turned off the pull deep. And that's what it sounds like, just to start. Turn the deep back on. You hear how that changes the character. And turn on our EQ. Kick my overdrive back on. And turn on the lead. So, like I said, there's just so much going on there, and we haven't even gotten to the processing that I did to actually get the thing mix ready. So, let's hear what this sounds like with the, I'll kind of just turn some stuff on and off so you can hear what that sounds like. So we got no EQ. So there's like a ton of tweakability here. You're gonna be just tweaking it for days. So let's take a look at my my post-processing, because this is not mix ready by any stretch of the imagination. There's a ton of frequencies going on here that you won't want in the full context of a mix. So I think I'll mute out the other guitar. Yeah, this is not a sound that you want. So let's talk about my processing. So the first thing you want to do anytime you're mixing guitars is high and low pass filter. We want to just trim how much fizziness is in the top, and you kind of control how much low end we've got going on. So that's the first thing I'm doing here. So what I'm doing is I'm cutting around, where am I? I'm at 5.3. So that's relatively low actually, especially for a rhythm tone. I don't like the fizzy stuff. And then I'm cutting around, actually only 68. Normally I cut a little bit higher, but when you do these sort of things, you shouldn't be doing them in solo. I do them in the context of hearing the full mix. So let's turn this off and on. That's already much better. It's already way more mix ready. Then I always do 2 cuts. I try not to do more than that. So there's going to be one that's a little lower, usually around 3.5. So this is 3.2, and then another one that's usually a little higher. A lot of times the higher cut is a matter of just doubling the frequency that you're at for your lower one. It's not quite exactly double in this case. You just have to experiment, and I'll turn those on and off. And in my opinion, that's like a huge improvement, right? Especially when I turn off the lower one, there's this big boxy kind of fizzy hiss. So both of those are making an enormous improvement in the overall tone. I'll turn them all on and off. So massive improvement. Now, the problem is we've kind of trimmed and cut off so many frequencies. The overall sound has kind of gotten a little bit dark, which wouldn't translate well to in the mix either. If I turn off the EQ altogether, like that doesn't work. It's much better, but now it's too dark. And then this is where you just use kind of a finish polish EQ. And this is my favorite one to go with, the FGN from Slate. It's extremely colorful EQ. It's very powerful. Just a teeny bit goes a long way. In this case, I'm boosting 1.8 dB at 3.9, just call it 4K, and then a teeny little bit of top shelf. And here's what that sounds like on its own, just in solo, so you can hear that. Context of the mix. Makes a big difference in the context of the mix, I think. You know, it's just that little bit of presence back where it's like now it's back in the mix, right where it kind of needs to be. The last thing to do is always, or anytime there's palm muting, you want to try to grab and catch those frequencies, and that's what we're doing here. So I've got a dynamic EQ set up. Pop it on. And you can see when the chord's kind of just ringing out, it's not really doing much, and then it kind of sits down. This might actually be a little too aggressive of a cut, actually, taking a look at it again. But when you're putting together a project as big as this, sometimes mistakes kind of happen. Jam everything off, and everything back on. Lead back in. So that's an example of everything you got to do to kind of get the tone actually mix ready. So there's a huge difference between just like what something sounds like coming off the amp, or even just like, you know, on its own. It's a tricky thing to do, to try to figure out the best mic placement and all that kind of stuff. That's why my approach is usually just to get this set to whatever sounds good, and then what I'll do is I'll run through with a couple different passes of some different EQ moves, and then I save them, and I just sort of quickly A/B it in order to hear it. So that's what my rhythm sounded like. Here's an example of the lead. So with the lead, we ended up with a much different 5-band EQ setting, because it's not a high gain metal rhythm tone. So let's jump over and take a look at the lead real quick. Again, I used the exact same cab and mic settings because that was what I was going to be using for my bigger shootout video. Yeah, here's our settings. I'm using Overdrive 2 in front of it. And I'll do kind of the same thing. I'm going to turn the EQ on and off. I'll change some of these settings here so we can kind of hear what they're doing. Right, so that's the amp on like the clean setting. Again, it's not really 2 channels, right? It's like cascading. So that's EQ off, the lead off, and then I turned off drive 2. And we'll turn it all back on. Actually, I'll turn this off. So you can hear how that drive pedal is doing a lot to kind of kick the amp up into that last bit of like saturation. It sounds a little weak, a little weak otherwise. Right, so I decided to not go with any of these. Again, they all sort of shift, changing the low end and different sort of responses of the different, you can add a little extra bright going into the preamp, a little extra bright more towards the end. And then, yeah, this is the EQ I ended up going with. So, since it's a lead, I'm not trying to push the lows a ton, and I also don't want to carve out all the middle because it's a lead part. I want it to have those mids to sort of sit in the mix. The processing from there went through the same thing as before. Got a little bit of EQ going on here, so we'll kind of bypass that. First, again, starting with the high and low pass. Yeah, right around the same point. Actually, I think I just copy and pasted the EQ to start and then changed the middle part. And that felt like the right move in order to get it kind of mix ready. Again, these 2 cuts are just dealing with the whistlingness that nobody likes. And then this was more a move that seemed to make the most sense in the context of the whole mix. Obviously, I could have grabbed the fader and maybe pulled down here a little bit more instead, but I decided to go with the EQ. Then same thing, kind of polishing EQ, experiment with the 2 of them and ended up going with the FGN over the custom series EQ. Same sort of thing, a little bit of top end, a little bit more in that rhythm, and then a little bit lower of a mid boost. And another dynamic EQ, you can see it sitting down on all the palm muty kind of runs. It might sound a little funny on its own because it's really scooping out a bunch when it hits that part, but in the context of a mix, that makes a huge difference. And last but not least, let's take a look at the clean tone that I had going on. This one I was pretty proud of how it ended up turning out. So for this tone, again, I was using some Gojira plugins, or I was using some Gojira special effects. So then I kept them and then ran it into the Mesa Boogie. For this one, I'm using the compressor, because those are taps, to really make them like punch and cut through. Compressor's doing a ton there. If you're not using a compressor on anything tappy, you really got to explore that. It's really cool. This EQ move is pretty subtle. We're, you know, obviously don't have the lead channel turned on, so they're like, it's kind of a 2-channel amp, but not really, because one channel goes right into the next. And I've got the bright on here. Which is really doing a lot, I think. I think a lot of making this tone really sit in the mix is this pull bright thing that's really shifting that tone. And then from there, just a little teeny bit of an EQ, because I want this to be sort of a lo-fi kind of effect, so I'm cutting pretty low. That's all the way down to 3 over here, and then this is kind of high, all the way up to 216. I'll turn this EQ off. So that EQ is doing all the heavy lifting, right, to make it mix ready. And then last but not least, another instance of Gojira, because I was using Gojira for the delay and reverb effects, so had to create a second instance of it to get the signal flow to be correct. And this is a fun thing to do as well, and I'm really stoked now that the Quad Cortex has plugins on it to be able to like mix and match all the different blocks the way that I'm already doing in all my projects is going to be really, really cool. All right, so thanks for watching this video. Hopefully you got a little something out of it. I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions, you know, down below as far as how you think the amp sim sounds. I think for the price that you pay for it, you really can't go wrong. I love the Neural DSP stuff. It's not perfect, obviously, but for the price of basically just like an MXR pedal, you're getting an entire amp sim with the cab and all the effects as well as the head. I mean, that's just, I think it's a really good value. So thank you again for watching this video. If you liked it, like and subscribe, do all that stuff, help support the channel. I'd greatly appreciate it, and hope you have a good one. See you in the next one.